Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the guided practice exercise that we were unable to get to in class yesterday. So here we have a scenario discussing whether sugar added to water would help flowers stay fresh. And an experiment is developed and explained here. And the scatter plot at the left was created with sugar being measured on the x-axis and the freshness, number of hours, being measured on the y-axis. A least squares regression line was calculated, and we see here the equation y hat equals 180.8 plus 15.8x. So we are going to go ahead and use this as well as interpret certain things. So if we are So the first question here is to find the predicted value for the flour that 2 tablespoons of sugar. So using our equation, y, whoops, let me get the pen turned on. So y hat, God, I didn't turn the pen on, that's weird. So y hat, don't forget your hat, we are doing a predictive variable. 180.8 plus 15.8x. So we're going to go ahead and replace x with 2 for our 2 tablespoons of sugar. And we can go ahead and calculate that. So 180.8 plus 31.6, which is going to give us 212.4. So with 2 tablespoons of sugar, it is predicted that a flour will look fresh for 212.4 hours. Okay, so that's using predicted value, just taking the given x value, substituting it for x in the equation or the explanatory variable in the equation, and simplifying to find the predicted value, y hat in this case. Okay, so we're going to calculate and interpret, looking on the second question, calculate and interpret the residual for the flour that 2 tablespoons of sugar and looked fresh for 204 hours. So we know from exercise 1 that y hat was 212.4, and we know that y actual, y, was 204. So to find the residual, we take the actual minus the predicted. So that would be 204 minus 212.4. And we get a residual of negative 8.4. So the residual for 204 hours, let me rephrase that, because it's the residual of a point, so we'll say the residual for 2 tablespoons, 204 hours, is negative 8.4. Okay. So now question 3 is asking us to look for, interpret the slope of the regression line. So we can go back to our equations. We know that this is our slope. This is our B1. So we come back here to our question, and we know that the B1 is equal to 15.8. We know from our explanation in class yesterday that that would be the units of y, which is hours, over the units of x, which is tablespoons. So we can then interpret that as for every 1 tablespoon of sugar, a flour will look fresh for 15.8 hours more. Remember, the slope is a rate, so it's 15.8 hours per 1 tablespoon, and we can interpret that as such. Now, to look for the y-intercept of the regression line, again, we're going back to our equation. So our y-intercept is the 180.8. This is our B naught. So we come down here. So we know that our B naught is 180.8. And B naught is in the hours, is in the units of y. So this is 180.8 hours. So this is telling us that for with 0, because it's the initial value, it's when the x is going to be 0. So with 0 tablespoons of sugar, a flour will look fresh for 180.8 hours. Now, we need to check to see, as we talked before, that the y naught, or B naught, our initial value, or y-intercept, is often insignificant because it lies, either doesn't make any sense for the context or lies outside of the range. Now, in terms of adding 0 sugar to a vase of water, that's a perfectly viable option in this experiment. So it does make sense for the scenario. However, we need to check to see if it's outside the range. Now, when we look at our min and max value on our scatter plot, we see that the min is 0 tablespoons of sugar, and the max is 3 tablespoons of sugar. So 0 is within the range. It is inside the min, so the value does make sense. And it is significant. We are not extrapolating. So we can say this makes sense in context. And is not an extrapolation. So I hope, ladies and gentlemen, that helps you with how to use a least squares regression line, or line of best fit, the equation, to predict values, how to calculate residuals, and how to identify and interpret the slope and the y-intercept of the regression line. Now, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you go ahead and complete the practice set. This was the practice set originally assigned yesterday, but I asked you in class to delay it. I am now going to assign it today, and you need to have it with you in class tomorrow, Thursday, so that we can discuss it. Remember, to discuss it means I need your input and your engagement. Not just standing there, but bring your questions. I will gladly go over them and talk about them. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and have a wonderful day.